Hello, I'm Kenan Proffitt. Welcome to a Blender branch tutorial. The reason I call this a Blender branch tutorial is because I have just launched my brand new website, blenderbranch.com. So you can go and check that out. I'll put a link to the description, or I'll put a link in the description to that. In this tutorial, we're going to be creating a spaceship. This is part one of a two-part tutorial. And the final outcome of this will be a motion tracked scene with a spaceship flying through the air. In this first one, we're going to create this spaceship you see here. This is as far as we'll get in this tutorial. So I'm going to talk you through modeling and the texturing of this. There's also going to be blueprints that you can download from my website, and you can follow along with the blueprints just to make the modeling a little bit easier. And then we're going to be doing the texturing and getting the ship ready for animation in our scene. So let's get right into it. First thing, we're going to open our background images right here, and we're going to add in our blueprints. So the first one, I'm going to change it to the front view. So I'll go to front view. We'll just delete this cube for now. So let's click open and find wherever you have saved the downloaded images, the blueprints that I've created. Now, I made these blueprints, so they aren't going to be perfect by any stretch of the imagination. But they will do the job. So now we're going to just go through, and if you've done this before for like a model or anything, then you know exactly how to do this. But if you haven't, then I'm showing you. So I'm going to load in the top view, change it from all views to just top. So now if we go to the top view, we see the top part of the spaceship. I'm going to go into the right view and do the same thing, add image, open, and find where I have these. Again, I should have bookmarked these in a good place, but I didn't. Okay, side view, and switch it from all views to the right side. So now they're all there. Great. Now what we need to do is align all these blueprints because I just made them in Photoshop, so I didn't make them all perfectly, so they're going to be missized and all that. But that's good because if you've never lined up all your blueprints, this is good practice. So let's add in a cube, and I'm going to go over here to this panel right here and change it to Imperial. This is the real world Blender measurements. You can use metric if you like. I'm gonna use Imperial. And now we're able to actually make real dimensions, or make our ship be an actual dimension. I don't know what I'm trying to say, I'll just show you. So I want this to be about 15 feet long, I guess. So I just typed in 15 feet right there. And there you go. We also want to sort of scale it so it's going to fit how long or how wide this blueprint is. But you can see from this top view down, our blueprint isn't quite 15 feet long. So instead of scaling the cube down, no, that's not how you do it. You scale down our background image. So underneath the top view, if I check that down, I'm going to scale this up so that it fits the length. So it's about 15, so that the blueprint is to scale. And that's pretty good. This right one moves the blueprint up or down, and this one moves it left or right. So I want it to be in the pretty dead center. That's pretty good right there. And I think that'll work. So now we can scale along the x-axis, and that's going to determine sort of the width of our ship. So now if I go to the side view, you can see this is the length of our ship. So we need to scale this side view blueprint actually way down. So if I go to this one, I'm going to scale it down so that it fits the length of this. And we also want to sort of move it in there And now I scaled down too much. Move it to the side a bit. I'm gonna have to go to the 0.15 maybe. I'll scale it in more. I'm gonna go 3.6, 3.68, 3.65. Okay, that's good. You don't have to be as precise. Sometimes I just like it to be perfect, but the blueprint is flawed, so that it's not going to be exactly on, and that's okay because it is a sci-fi spaceship, so it really doesn't matter all that much. So side view is good, top view is good, the front view is not. So let's scale the front view down to fit the width of this cube, because that's all we have to go off of from that. So scale way down and move it over, scale down, over the other way. Again, this is annoyingly tedious. I'm gonna go negative 0.1, that might do it. No. Negative 0.08. What am I doing? Okay, so that's that way. Negative, negative 0.05, too much, 0.05. Okay, now I'll scale out. That'll be fine. All right, so let's get into the modeling of this ship. Now, hopefully you'll be able to gain some pointers on making a pretty clean model and using quads as opposed to tris. So no triangles in our mesh. That way everything is even, and when we go to add a subdivision surface, it all evens out nicely. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to the side view here, like I've done, and I'm going to start adding in some loop cuts to sort of match this blueprint. That's a nice thing about blueprints is it's really nice to have something to go off of. So I'm just going to, I like to just press C, and this creates a circle select here. And I'm clicking and then clicking to deselect. And again, we're just sort of mapping out the basic shape and adding loop cuts as needed. Let me turn my screencast keys back on here. Okay. So another loop cut. You want them to sort of be evenly spaced. It's always a good idea. You know, it doesn't always work that way, but it's nicer. Keeps a cleaner mesh. Okay. Another loop cut. Drag both of these down. And I purposely made this model very simple. It's easy to model, and it's just kind of a simple model because if you follow through both parts of the tutorial, we are going to do motion tracking and then of course adding fire to the ship, and so we're going to use it in animation. And because of that, you don't want a model that has tons of geometry or that has a lot of complexity, because that's just going to slow Blender down and you're going to drive yourself nuts. Okay, so I'm going to add a loop cut here at the very front and sort of make a tip of the airplane here. Or not an airplane, spaceship, excuse me. Okay, so now obviously it's not looking like much, but we're going to fix that. So I'll press Z for transparency mode. You can see these are all the loop cuts we added, and now we want to add 3 more. So I'm going to click, add one in the dead center, and then add one right near the front, sort of where that flat part is going to end right there. And then we'll add one more about right there. Maybe there. Okay. And now what we're going to do, we're ready to add a mirror modifier to cut our modeling in half. So I'm going to go to face select mode. I'll press B to box. Just box select all of that half, X, and delete faces. Now I'm going to go to the modifiers panel, add modifier, and mirror. Okay, now that's going to save us tons of time. Now what we can do is I'll delete these middle vertices right here because obviously there's nothing there. So X, delete vertices. You can see it is now finally starting to take shape. Amazing. Wonderful world of spacecraft right before your very eyes. Okay. That was lame. Alright, so I'm gonna select these vertices and drag them down so they sort of meet up with where our blueprint is right there. And just to make things nice and even, I just select that loop cut. I selected that, by the way, by pressing Alt and right clicking, or actually Option if you're on a Mac like I am. Alright, now we want to start matching this side with the top of our blueprint, so let's do just that. I'm going to drag these over and match this up. And this is where it's going to start to get sort of hairy, I guess. You have there's some areas where it might be easier to just delete vertices, and we're gonna just sort of talk through how to keep your mesh clean. So right now I think it might be easier just to drag these vertices over rather than trying to cram them all. So that's what we'll do. Drag all these over. And let's try to fit this one up near this tail, give that sort of cool edge to the tail. And we can bring these in a bit. And of course, this nice stingray angle out here. Bring that in. If you need to move this edge around, just drag it up. Hopefully I'm not going too slow or too fast. I'm trying to keep this tutorial at a good range of Blender level people. Does that make sense? A lot of different people, a lot of different levels, hopefully will be able to follow this tutorial. Okay, so now this edge right here is all looking pretty good, but now we're left with all this excess. So it's perfectly fine to just go ahead and delete all that. And maybe I created one too many loop cuts. That's okay because it shows us how to deal with these kind of problems. So I just have those vertices selected. I'm just going to press X and delete those. So now it's looking pretty nice. What we need to do now is make sure that we don't have any just triangles or 3 vertices. So every face has 4 vertices connected to it. And I think we are good. It's looking nice. What I want to do is add another loop cut in the very center just to break that up, create more squares all along here. And we're going to start evening all of that out. Now obviously what we want to do is fill in some of these faces. So I'm going to select these 4 points, press F to fill. And again, and the reason, by the way, I'm not just selecting these edge loops and pressing F, create one giant face, is because, like I keep saying, we want to keep everything even, nice squares, because that's going to help with our subdivision surface. When you just fill all those edge loops of vertices, you're going to end up having a very messy mesh, and things are going to be overlapping, and you'll have vertices not actually connected to things. So doing it the slow way, or the proper way, just keeps a very nice and simple, clean mesh. Okay, that is looking nice. Now we want to straighten up some things if need be. Maybe just pull this edge of vertices out a little. Make them just so things look nice and organized. Vertices aren't too close to other vertices. Let's bring this guy in a little. I think we can afford to add a loop cut. So I'm going to select this loop cut, drag it up some, bring that vertex in. I'm going to press Control R, add another one right there in the middle, and drag that over. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Now, of course, we want to fill in this side, so I'll select these, press F to fill, select these vertices, F to fill, and we're just going to keep doing this. Bum, bum, bum. All right, very nice. So now, because we took the time to evenly create all of that, let me just fix this right here. If we just throw on a subdivision surface, you can see it subdivides very nicely over the whole mesh because everything is a perfect square everywhere. You just have very nice smooth surfaces, nothing sticking out in an awkward way. And that's just very helpful for modeling just the overall process. I'm just going to delete that for now because we don't need it yet. And let's keep modeling. So next thing we want to do is, just for reference, we want to sort of add in this cockpit, or whatever you want to call the front part. So it's super simple. Really, it's just a sphere. So I'm going to add in a sphere. And I'll press S and Y, scale along the Y-axis, SX, scale along the X-axis, until it sort of fits up that. And we'll do some fancy stuff in the back. Not really, nothing fancy at all. Now I'll press S and Z, scale up this way. And we're just going to chop this baby in half. So I'll press B to box, get rid of those. And voila! You have our menacing looking spacecraft. I don't know if it's menacing. Maybe not. Maybe you think it looks like a ladybug, I don't know. Okay, so let's make it look a little bit more like a cockpit. So I'm going to select these back vertices right here. How many is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'll go to top view and I'm just going to press S, Y, 0. And that makes those flat. And now I'll go ahead and do the same for these, S, Y, 0. Oh, for the top view, S, Y, 0. And now I'm going to select this bottom and just extrude down. And that's just to give it sort of the idea that it's actually attached somewhere to the ship other than just floating there. So let's extrude down one more time and then go inward until it's sort of intersecting with the ship. In this case, intersection is perfectly acceptable because we are, by the way, building a very simple model. Okay, that's very nice. Very nice indeed. I think what I'll also do is just create a little more shape to it. So this might be going off the blueprint a little bit, but it'll be good. So just drag this up a little and add in a loop cut right here. And that'll sort of flatten that part out a little. So now if we just hit smooth shading, maybe a subdivision surface, yeah. That looks nice. Okay, so that was easy. Cockpit, yeah, our front blueprint is off a little. Oh well, could be worse. We mostly have just been using the top and the side anyway. Okay, so now I'm just going to hide that for now. I just pressed H to hide that. By the way, to unhide is Alt H or Option H. So the reason I say that is because for the longest time I knew how to hide things, but to bring it back I had to just go up here and check the eye because I had no idea. I'd watch tutorials and I'd try to figure out what are people pressing to bring back their hidden objects. I know, stupid mistake, but everyone is constantly learning. It's a beautiful thing about Blender. You never stop learning. Okay, I gotta stop talking. So let's start adding some detail. And the cool thing about this model, you can go crazy with detail or you can keep it very simple and it's just gonna look as sleek as can be. So I sort of go with more simple because like I said, I'm using it in animation. But you can just add whatever you want. I'm gonna add these little sort of back wing fins here. Honestly, I don't really remember how I did that, so I'm just gonna add in a cube and scale it. And I'm gonna press Control R, add in a loop cut here. And now I'll press S and Z, scale that way down. And I'll grab this back vertice, just drag that out. Drag this one down. And move these up a little. I know I'm not following the blueprint here. There we go. I think that'll work. That is pretty cool. Now it's just a matter of rotating it, putting them in place. And there we are. Very cool. And if we were to join that to this object, because we have the mirror modifier on, if I just hold down Shift, click the ship and press Control J, but we have one on the other side in the perfect place. But I don't want to do that yet because they're going to be textured separately, and so we'll just leave it as its own for now. Okay, that was easy. Now what else do we need? If you can, I don't know if you can tell from the blueprint, maybe if you see from the front, it sort of has this side extra flap there to make it look a little more menacing. So let's model in that. But before we do that, let's go ahead and sort of make sure with the subdivision surface, this side is how we want it. You can see it sort of looks just kind of a little too smooth. If I go to 3, which is probably what our final one is going to be at. We want to add in sort of a center loop cut to keep it a little flatter. And you can add, I mean, depending on how flat you want this, you could add in, you could add in a second one. I keep doing that. You could add in a second one and, really flatten it out. But I find just one is nice. So I like it to sort of be that sleek, smooth style ship. It just sort of silently cruises through the air. Okay, so that's good. So now what I'll do, I'll go ahead and turn that off for now. I'm just going to select some of these vertices on this. I'm going to press Shift D and then P and separate that by selection. And I'll drag this up a little. Press E to extrude down. So now basically we just have this random separate object that we're going to create this other wing with. So now I'll just extrude that out. It's not really another wing. It's more like a wing flap or something. And there we go, just like that. And if I throw in throw on the subdivision surface. You can see an idea of what it's going to look like. Turn on for that one also. So you have some weird distortion here. To fix that, I'm going to select everything, come over to shading UVs and hit recalculate. That takes care of that problem. And let's just bring the edges of this guy into the plane. So I'm just going to press B, box select those, and drag it in. Select those. Oop. Hopefully it's not too confusing what I'm doing here. There we go. It's not attached. Unattached. Select this edge loop here and the top one. I'm making this way more complicated than it needs to be. Really, it's just a little added flap. There's a lot of different ways you can model it. I probably picked the most complicated way to do it. But that's okay. So there we go. You have our headed sort of menacing look there going on. So for these engine things here, basically it's going to be pretty low poly just with the subdivision surface added. So I guess it's not really low poly, it's just basically all going to be modeled off of a square. So what we'll do, we'll model it big and then sort of scale it down. So I'm just going to scale here along the y-axis. And this is sort of the basic shape of this engine. So the front, go to vertices select mode. Actually face select mode because we're going to just delete that face. I'm going to take these points here, press E to extrude, drag that out, scale it up, E to extrude again, drag it out, E extrude, and then scale in, and then just E to extrude again, and scale inside this box we've created, and also just in, make it smaller. Okay. Now we'll sort of do the same type of thing for the back, so let me select these vertices, drag it out like that. And we're going to delete this face. I'll press E to extrude, scale in. E to extrude, scale out. E to extrude, scale up and out a little. And E to extrude, scale out. E to extrude, scale in. And again, sort of the same type of thing here. This, however, we want to be, this end we want to be a little bit bigger than the front. So I'll scale this all up and over. And I think I made these edge loops a little too big, so let me scale these down, because it sort of rounds up here. So this should really be smaller in the front. So I'll just scale that down like that. Okay, so now you might be thinking, well, that looks really dumb. But if we add on a subdivision surface, voila. Starts to look sort of like a rocket blaster booster or something. Engine something or another. Okay, I made up my own engine, alright? I don't really know what it is, but it shoots fire and it makes the thing go. Therefore, it is awesome. And I'm getting lost inside it. I just want to add a little detail. About like that. Alright. And let's clean this model up a little. Select these front vertices, drag it over. Alright, that looks pretty cool. You might not think so, but I'll take it. I'm happy with it. So, let's throw it on our ship here. Scale it down so it's sort of where the size we want it to be, based off of our blueprints. And we're gonna do, just need to attach them, so throw on a cube, scale it in, very simple way of attaching this thing. Hopefully I'm not losing you with the blueprints. You can turn the blueprints off, so I'm gonna do that. I will just hide all of these, that way we don't get confused. Alright. So just pressing Shift D, duplicating that guy, dragging it over. Here we go. We have our engine. That's cool. Now another thing I have, I put on my ship is sort of 4 little hover engines, I guess I would call them. Just sort of things. It would help with landing. It would help with just sort of allowing this ship to sort of hover right above ground. And basically all I did, I took this engine that I made, I'll press Shift D, duplicate it, and then I'm just going to modify it a little. So I'll just select these, and I'll add a loop cut before I do this. Select these and just delete them. And now if I rotate this, and just with everything selected, press S and Z, scale it down, that crunches it in a little. I'll just add a loop cut right here, sort of make it look different, scale it out. The way it looks a little flatter, a little more squished. And because we've done that, I'm going to apply the scale, so I'll press Control A, scale. And also I'm going to go down to Object, Transformation, and Origin to Geometry. So that changes this origin. Because before the origin was based off of this, now it's going to be based off of our modified little engine here. So I'm going to go to the bottom view and sort of just place this where I want it. Scale it down a little, put one right about there. Sort of near the front. Press Shift D, duplicate it, and one right about there. And position them as needed. Alright, very nice. Now I'm going to join these 3 objects together so they're the same object, so I'll press Control J. And now if we just join these to the ship, Control J, boom, they appear on the other side in perfect symmetric order. Alright, we are now getting somewhere. I think we're almost done with modeling, really. If I press Alt H, bring back our cockpit thing. You tell we have to modify this now that we've put on our subdivision surface to the ship. So let's select these front vertices. Where am I? Side view. And let's drag those down so that they fit. Also, what I might do is just add a little more thickness to the overall ship. So I'm going to select, I'll go to top view, I guess. Just select all these top faces here. Let me hide this guy. Oh, okay. All these faces. Just drag it up, add some thickness to our ship. Can drag up this fin also. Alt H, bring that back. Now, important thing to do, we want to apply the scale of everything. So I'm just going to press Control or Shift S. What am I doing? Control A, apply the scale. Control A, scale. I keep pressing Control S. And Control A, scale. Alright, now that we've done that, man, it is looking good. Let's join this fin, finally, to this, just to see what it looks like. I'm going to Control J. You can see it applied the subdivision surface. So what we need to do now is go through the whole model and decide what parts we want to be sort of a hard surface. So for instance, I want this tip back here to have a crease in it. So I'm going to select this edge right here. If I press Shift E and drag that out, you can see it makes that into an even little point there. And that's what I want because I like that to be menacing. I keep saying that, but... And maybe we'll do it for all of this. These edges, press Shift D, drag them out. Yeah, I think I like that. Do the same on this bottom right here. That looks pretty cool. So now you can see it sort of starts smooth and then goes out to a sharp point. I do think you can modify this a little, drag that up, drag this one down. There we go. It sort of looked like it was floating a little. And that's looking very nice. All right. We have ourselves a model spaceship. We need to add a few more hard edges. So I think right here on this back area, I want this to be sort of a hard point. So I'm going to select all of this right here and press Shift D and drag that out. So now it comes to a hard point. And we're going to do some fancy little modeling here. I'm actually going to add a loop cut. No, I'm not going to add a loop cut. What I'm going to do is select these faces and I'm going to press E and scale them in and then drag them inside the actual ship. It's sort of difficult to do this because it's at an angle, so just do your best to sort of match it up. I want it to be a little more in there. Now what I'll do is add a loop cut on the inside of this, if I can, right there. And scale that out, make it a little more interesting. What we're going to do is put lights in there when we get to the texturing. That just adds more just overall detail to the thing, to the whole ship thing. I might do that on the bottom actually. Just take this face right here, press E to extrude, scale that in, and then press Shift D, drag that out. There we go. Now it just looks like, now we just have more detail on the bottom there. Something random, something cool, something break up with all that flatness. And there could be anything hiding in there. Maybe weapons come out. I don't know. There we have it. The modeling is pretty much completed. The next part is texturing. And texturing is really ridiculously easy for this guy. Now, there's no limit to the ways you could texture. You could find all kinds of displacement maps and everything to texture this thing up, make it look like a awesome Star Wars ship. I'm just using procedural texturing because it was easy, and I didn't want this tutorial to get too long with the detail, because I know the primary focus of this is to throw it in an actual scene and get it flying around and animating. So what I'm going to do is show you how to procedurally texture this guy. So let's get right into it. Let's select our lamp first of all. Let's change it to a sun and give it a value of about 3. Have that pointing on our ship. And now we just want to select the body of this ship. And there's a few things we have to clean up with this wing. First of all, when we duplicated these vertices to create this wing, it duplicated this modifier, this mirror modifier. And that's going to cause problems later on when we actually want to join this wing to the body of this. What would happen is it would create a double on both sides. So let's just get rid of this mirror modifier for now. And let's do the same for these tails here. Just delete the mirror modifier. Now we'll just have these two separate objects. And then later when we go to join them to the spaceship, it'll all fit together in a way that makes sense. Okay, so let's select this body and go over to our materials tab and just click new material. Let's name this ship body. And what I like to do is just drag this bottom timeline up and change it down here in the bottom left corner to the node editor. And that leaves us plenty of space to create our material. So now what I'll do is just press Shift A, shader, and add in a mix shader. And obviously we want a glossy shader, so add in a glossy. Now if we press Shift Z, that changes to the rendered view. So now we can see what we're doing. Now we're going to use a few different textures for the diffuse. So first I'm going to add in a noise texture. Noise texture. We'll change the scale and detail to a value of 12. And now we want to add in a mix RGB. So go to color, mix RGB. And these two colors are going to be what the noise texture sort of places all over this ship. So if we just plug in the factor to the factor of the mix RGB and the color into the diffuse, we can now change these two colors to be the color of our ship. So if I change one to be blue and the other red, you can see we have this noise blue and red. That looks absolutely terrible. But I'm just showing you what this texture over here is doing. And really what I'm trying to do there is sort of fake the idea of warped steel, or maybe just a little bit grungy looking steel. And you can change the scale and everything and get different results. I like the scale of 12. I played with a few different numbers. But it just looks good. It looks like there's some just kind of warpiness going on with it. So that works out. Obviously we want to adjust these colors. I want it to kind of be a steely blue. And then just sort of a white, maybe a tiny bit of turquoisey color in there. Let's go a little bit darker with the blue. And that's pretty good. So there, it's starting to work. Our ship here. So now what we want to do is just keep adding detail to the overall ship. So let's change the mix value to about 0.2. Give a little less glossiness. And now we want to add more detail, so let's duplicate this mix shader just by pressing Shift D and dragging it over. And we want to add in another diffuse, and we can just leave that one at white. And now we want to change this factor to create sort of what looks like steel plates put together for this ship. So to do that, I'm going to press Shift A, go to Texture, and Brick Texture. You might be thinking, why in the world are we going to use a brick texture? Because if you plug the factor into the factor of that mix shader, we have horrible looking bricks. But before you think I'm ridiculous. If we adjust this scale, just slide it around. If we go to maybe 1, let's see, let's go 0.8. And now if we change this mortar size to 0.01, let's go even smaller, 0.001. And there you go. You see it looks more just like little lines in the steel. Actually, what I'll do squash 0.4 and then change the offset to 0.5 to 0.6 and the scale to 1.4. There we go. We have some cool looking lines and sharp surfaces all over our ship. And that was pretty easy. Now we want to sort of increase this by using this brig texture for our displacement in our material. That's very easy to do. Just drag the factor of this into displacement. And now all those lines are raised. They're bumped up. I want them to sort of be inverted, so I'm just going to add an invert node and invert those. Just like that. So now if you zoom in here, you can see they're all indented. And the diffuse over here in the mix shader is what defines the color of these. So if you want them to be black, you can scale it, put that all the way down to black. If you want them to be, you know, kind of a steely gray, maybe blue. I'm just going to leave it at sort of an off-white gray. And I found that looks pretty good. So there you have it. Now I'm going to adjust these colors a little more. I think the blue is a little too much. So I'm just going to slide this over, make it more of a gray. We'll make this a little closer to the blue. We don't want that noise texture coming through too obviously, just very subtly. And there you go. I'm going to set the roughness of this glossy all the way down. Let's go 0.1 for the roughness. Now we have our sleek looking body. It's working out pretty well. So that's pretty much it for that part. Now what we want to do is apply that to this tail and fin, but we're just going to have the same material applied there, just change the colors. So what I'll do, press Shift Z, go to object mode. I'm going to select this fin right here. And I'm going to plus on the material and then select ship body. And now the exact same material will be applied to that if we just hit assign. Shift, I'll select this in edit mode, hit assign. Now you can see it has the exact same material applied. But I want this little side flap in the tail to be different colors. So the way we adjust those colors is right here in the material. If we just hit plus, then that creates a double of the material, but one that we can change. So if we just change the color of this to like a green, then it changes just that fin, or that side flap. I'm calling it a fin. I don't know what it is really. And that looks pretty cool. And now we can maybe adjust how many of these lines are in this side flap, because currently it's just using the same information for the whole ship. So let's, I don't know what we'll change here. Let's put the frequency down, maybe the scale down as well. And that makes it look like it sort of belongs a little more. Okay, great. Now we want to apply the same material to this side, or this back tail here. So I'll just select this, click new material, and the ship body 0.001. You see it created a whole new material. And just like that, oh, we got to assign it. So I'm going to go to edit mode, select all of these, hit assign. And now that back fin has that same material applied to it. Perfect. Okay, we are almost done. Told you this would be easy. Now let's just select our cockpit thing here, create a new material. We'll name this, I don't know, glass. This is very simple material. I'm just going to drag this diffuse out, change it to a slightly bluish color. Press Shift A, go to shader, add in a mix shader, and shader glossy. And there you go. It obviously doesn't look very good now because we have no environment around it. And we can adjust these things once we get the ship into our scene. Right now it looks pretty boring, but when it's actually reflecting clouds and stuff, it'll look cool, I promise. Now the reason I didn't use a glass material and make this actual glass is because then it would be transparent. And I don't want it to be transparent because I didn't take the time to model anything inside the actual cockpit. Now, if you want to take that time, be my guest. But I didn't want to. Okay, so we're done with the cockpit part. Now let's do these engines here. So what I'll do, since these engines are joined to the body, I'll just add a new material with a body selected. We'll call this engine. And this is just going to be very similar to the cockpit. It's just going to be diffuse mixed with a glossy. But this diffuse is going to be pretty dark gray. Now what we have to do is just go to edit mode. And if I select one of these vertices for this engine and just press L, then that selects everything connected to that, since we modeled them separately. And all I'm going to do is hit assign on this engine tab. And you can see that assigned it to that engine. I think that roughness is a little too high, so I'll just turn the roughness all the way down. That way they look clean and sleek. Now we want to do the same thing for these little guys, so just select one vertice, press L. That selects all of that. And hit assign. Same thing with this one, L, and assign. Boom. Done. Done and dusted. Now, what I did is I went and added some lights just so I could have some crazy lens flares and stuff like that in my animation. And so I put a big red light right here in these faces right here. So let's just create a light. Again, where we have the ship selected, add a new material. And I'm just going to change this from diffuse to emission. And we'll change the color of this back one to red. And the strength to about 12. The higher that value is, the more, when we add in the glows and the lens flares and stuff, the more of that we'll get, the higher this value is. If that makes sense. So let's call this one red light. And let's go to edit mode and just hit assign. So now we have this red shining light in the back. And that just makes it look pretty cool. Now what I also did is added a blue light to the front. Or I think it was a red light on the front and then a blue light on the back of this little wing flap. So what I'll do, it's very simple. I'll just select these back two vertices. I'll press Shift S and put cursor to selected. And now with edit mode, I'll press Shift A and add in a sphere. And just scale that down. Cursor was not at the selected. Select these, Shift S, cursor to, what am I doing? Shift S, cursor to selected. Okay, now Shift A and add in a sphere. And I'm just going to scale that way down and move it so it's not sticking inside the plane or ship. Very advanced modeling here, scaling a sphere way down. And this is just going to be a little light shining, just to have more detail, make it look more like something that would actually be in the air flying around. Just don't want it intersecting too much. Okay, that looks good. I'll put smooth shading on. And now I'll hit new material and select this red light, but I'm going to change it to a blue light, so I'm going to press plus and just change this color to a light blue. So now if we press Shift Z, you can see we have a little light there on the back of that. And that looks pretty cool. But I want one on the front also, so go to top view, press Shift D, and that duplicates that. And drag this little guy up and over to where it's on the very tip of this, right here in the front. And I want this one to actually be red, so I'll just select the red light. And there we go. So now that front light is red, and that black light, that back light is blue. And we have our other lights and our engines. Everything is all textured up, I believe. Oh, and one last thing I did with this front selected, I modeled out sort of a little indent here. And with that selected, I made a new light. So I'm going to select that red light, hit assign, and plus again. I'm just going to change this to a whitish light, whitish yellowy light. And that just adds some more, it's kind of like a headlight for the whole thing. Makes it look more like this ship has a front and the pilot can see where he's going. Also, what I want to do with just this bottom ring of faces, minus these two since we just put a light there, I want to change that. Let's do these back faces right here. I want to change all of those to the same green color that we have for our tips of our wings. So I'll just press plus and select the ship body that's green and hit assign. So now there's sort of a green band all around, and it ties the tips of our wings together, and it just makes it look like there's sort of an overall unity with the whole thing. I don't know. Okay, so now all that's left to do is join these wings with the body of the plane. So what we'll do, I'll select all of these, even the little spheres if we can get those. Okay, let's do one at a time because this is getting out of hand. So I'll hold down this wingtip, right click the body, press Ctrl J. And you can see now, because we deleted the mirror modifier, it reapplies that and we get it on that other side. So that's why we did that. Ctrl J, apply that wingtip. Let's join this sphere there. And this sphere there. Perfect. Now Shift Z, rendered viewport mode. Dun dun. Our ship is complete and textured and looking menacing. Oh, I forgot. It is not complete. The bottom of these little engines right here, I wanted them to look like fire could possibly be coming out of them. So we want to apply that same red light to this section of these guys right here. So what I did was just select these faces inside. It's kind of hard to see. I just have to go to the bottom mode. And I'm going to deselect and just press B to box and grab these. It might be too many. Yeah, that was too many. Okay, what can We'll go to side view, beta box, select these vertices, those faces right there. And now I'll deselect this one and this one. So just those, and let's hit the red light and hit assign. So let's see what that looks like. Okay, good. So now the inside of that has that red glowing light. And it doesn't look like much now, but when we add the glows and stuff, it'll look, pretty cool. Just another, maybe there's part of a hovercraft coming out of there or something. I don't know. Let's do the same thing with this side one. So I'll just go to transparency mode and select these. And deselect these outer ones. We want those to keep the engine material. Now we'll just hit red light and assign. And there we go. That looks cool. Okay. We are done texturing this bad boy. Now, all we have to do in this tutorial is add in the smoke and fire domain, which is very easy. So what I'm going to do is just add, well, first of all, this is all, oh, we didn't join the cockpit. So what we have to do, I'm just going to Shift and Control J. Oh, that's not going to work because this thing had a modifier applied already. So let's uncheck this mirror modifier. And now hold down Shift, Control J. There we go. So now the entire ship, if we were to hide the modifier, is split in half. But it is all joined together. That's exactly what we want. So now what we want to do, press Shift Control A and apply the scale. Okay, now we can get into the smoke domain. So what I'm going to do is just add in a sphere right here in the back of this little engine. I'm going to rotate it along the x-axis, so RX 90. Just sort of fit it into that engine right there. And when we get it about right there, I'm just going to cut it in half. So I'll press B to box and chop off the part that's inside. And now I'll press Control A, apply the scale of that, and I'll come down here to Object, Transform, Origin to Geometry. We'll just slide that in a bit. Maybe about right there. That's good. Now I'll press A and then subdivide it. So W, that brings up that menu, and subdivide it. And that just adds more vertices. And you can press smooth, doesn't really matter. Now with this sphere selected, let's come over here to Particles. We'll select New, leave it on Emitter. Let's change the number of this. We'll add a 0 on the back and change the 1 to a 2. And now let's change our node editor to a timeline. You can slide this down, give us more room. If we press play, these particles go in all the wrong direction. So what we should do is reverse the faces. That might help. So if I press recalculate on all of these faces, there, now the particles all shoot out in the proper direction. And we want to set the end frame to 300, because that's how long our animation is going to be, about 300 frames. We'll set the lifetime to just 1, and we can turn the randomness up a little. What else? We can turn the normal down a tiny bit, and the z-axis, we want this to be at about an 8, so that it shoots pretty much straight out, just like that. Okay, very nice. Also, what we want to do is right here under emitter, we want to uncheck that so that you don't actually see this half of a sphere going on. So now with this sphere selected, if we go down to Object, this is so easy. Go to Quick Effects and Quick Smoke. You can see it creates a domain for us. I'm just going to rotate this domain and then drag it down. We'll even scale it down. We don't need it to be that big. And I'm going to want it to cover both of these engines. Drag it right about there. Pull it back some. Scale along the z-axis. It doesn't need to be quite that tall. Maybe a little more. Okay, and that's good. So now if we come over here to our physics panel, you can see we have our domain set up. And if we select this, this is our flow object. And it's already pre-calculated all of that. That's why I did the quick effects rather than going through all of it ourselves, because then it even creates a material for us that we can adjust. So now we want to change the flow source from a mesh to a particle system. And if we hit play, Blender catches up. It's not doing anything. Let's hit play with that selected. What? Oh, we didn't select a particle system. So select the particle system that we've created, which we didn't name it. But if you can see, it's just named particle system. So now if we hit play, you can see smoke shoots out and it looks terrible. So let's come back to this physics panel and we want to check, here, let's pause this. Underneath, if we have our circle selected, or half circle, if we check initial velocity, it'll follow the actual path of those particle system, or of our particles. So now it's shooting out like that. And we want that to dissolve, so let's check dissolve with our domain selected. Change the time down to about 2. You can see there now it's shooting out, but it's just smoke. So with our particles selected, let's change it to fire. And there we go. We have some fire shooting out of there pretty rapidly. But that's good because it's an engine. So now if we go to our domain and increase the divisions, I don't go very high with these. You can go to resolution of 200 and it's going to look amazing, but it's going to take forever to render. And since we're adding blurs and glows and all of that, I found a value of about 55 works just fine. Again, everything is sort of, I don't want to wait for all the render time because we're putting this ship in an animation. So, that's looking pretty good. You can see it automatically gives us a material if we just go to rendered viewport mode. Now also would be a really good time to save your scene. So we have some fire shooting out, and it doesn't look like much now. When you get it in a scene, it's going to look pretty cool. What I want to do with this domain selected, let's go back to the node editor, and you can make this, like I said, it's a really cool thing about the new version of Blender. It's already calculated this material in for us. What I want to do is underneath this multiply value, I'm going to set that to a value of 6. And then in this color ramp, which is the color of our fire, I want to add in some blue just to make it look more sci-fi-ish. So I'll go to rendered, show what I'm doing. I want some nice blue tones in there so I can slide this around. I still want the yellow and the red, but I want there to be a lot of blue when it first comes out, just to make it look pretty sci-fi like. And that's pretty cool. So I'll press Shift Z, go back to the object mode, and with our timeline, go back to 0. I'm just going to press Shift D to duplicate this sphere, move it right over here to this guy. And now if we hit play again, we have both of our engines going. And that is cool. And if you want, you can add more particles to these, or you can adjust these settings here. Might check random distribution, see what that does. That looks a little bit smoother. Okay, now all we have to do is parent all of these things to our ship. So what I'm going to do is select each half sphere, which might be difficult. Each half sphere and then the domain, and press Shift and right click our ship. Now if we press Control P, it choose this parenting menu comes up and choose Object Keep Transform. So now this is really cool. If we move our ship around, our domain goes with it. So if we tilt our ship up, the fire is still shooting out of there. If we rotate it, it moves with it. Wherever our ship goes, the fire goes too. And that's exactly what we want. Because in part 2 of this tutorial, we're going to take this ship and we're going to throw it in a scene. We're going to motion track our footage, put that ship in a scene and animate it so that it looks awesome. That's it for this one. You have your final ship that we've modeled and textured and added a smoke and fire domain, and things are looking really awesome. So hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I hope you'll stick around for part 2 of it, where we really start the fun part and get it into our scene looking amazing. Thanks for watching.